Okay. Um, so I know this is gonna be saved, and I'll just download it later. But my Twitch name is Toddler Toss. I'm gonna keep it that way for a little while. And welcome. So Z-llennial discusses disillusionment. I guess I say Z-llennial because I kind of walk the line between Gen Z and millennial. I've always been hazy on that. I was born in '95, so I'm 25. I turned 26 this year, 2021, in November. So I'm actually not sure if I count as millennial or as Gen Z. I'm just leaving it as as zillennial to keep it simple. But right now in my life, things have been really weird. I'm finding I'm becoming increasingly disillusioned with my future and the future in general. And I'm also finding a lot of examples online of other people also being disillusioned. Like for whatever reason, it's become more of a joke on the interwebs to joke about like, oh, wanting to die or being okay with dying and not really caring. And that's been really interesting to witness. It's brought up a lot of questions in my mind, like why does there seem to be this acceptance of death and this almost like welcoming of death to the point where it's become humorous. Let me spend a few minutes giving context, basically. So my heritage, I am half Chinese and half Colombian, South American. My mom is the Colombian side, and my dad is the Chinese side. I'm not gonna remember everything correctly because my whole life history is very hazy, but my life story, really condensed, is I was born in Dallas, Texas, but my family wasn't living there at the time. They were living in Fiji. My parents met in South America. My dad was some like bigwig scientist, agricultural dude. And he like married my mom, or I don't know the story very well, but they were living in Fiji essentially, which is in Oceania. I could probably just show that. I am sure most people know what Fiji is, but just for more context, Fiji. It's this tiny little island in Oceania, and you know it Australia's right there, right? So how do I close this? There we go. Suva is the capital, I think. Tokyo, yeah. So this is where we lived, where my family lived, rather. My parents were living in Fiji at the time. So born in Dallas, and for whatever reason, and we go back and we're living in Fiji. And up until 2 years old, I don't remember any of this, of course. My parents divorced. So they divorced, and out of Fiji, out of Oceania, so you see Australia's right there. It's all part of Oceania. I'm surprised I never saw any of these countries. This would have been so cool. Actually, I don't know if I've seen Australia. I feel I have this weird, distant memory, and I don't know if that was Australia or some other place, or if it's a fake memory. But I'm getting off track. They divorce and they leave Fiji and move out to I don't know what happened to my dad, but I ended up staying with my mom. Obviously not out of my own choice. I think it was something about my sister having to choose. Oh, I have a sister. I forgot to mention. I have an older sister. We're separated by 6 years. And yeah. So I think it came down to her choosing, or having to choose, which is unfortunate. Having to choose the parent to stay with, and the choice was to stay with our mom. So I grew up with my mom My dad would visit and keep in touch every once in a while, but for the most part, like all my life was spent with my mom. We leave and we move over to Florida. We moved to... This is Naples. We moved... Is Clearwater like some tiny place? We lived in Clearwater. Cape Coral, look at that. I'm gonna get to Cape Coral eventually, but we lived in Florida when I was like 3-ish or so. This is where my earliest memories start kicking in. I remember the small like little apartment or something that we lived in. There was a time where I swallowed a coin and it blocked like my ability to swallow things, so I was just dripping saliva. I don't remember that like happening very well, but my mom told me, and it's so stupid. What I do remember doing is playing with the coins, right? I remember laying on the ground and tossing these coins up and catching them in my mouth. And I think I do remember the point where it went down my throat and I was oh no, like that went too far. But then after that I don't remember anything, so anyway, here we go. We're living in Florida when I was like 3 years old or something. My mom leaves Florida and she moves to Dallas again. That's Austin. Oh, Dallas is further up north than I realized. I don't know why I forget. I've driven there multiple times. So this is where I was born, in this like district. That's weird. That's weird to think about and like look at. This is when I really start to remember some things. My first encounter with snow was around this time. It snowed in Dallas like 1 year or something like that. It was crappy snow. It wasn't even good snow. Like it's Texas snow, which is just icy and harsh and not fun or enjoyable in any way. But I was so excited because I mean, holy crap, it's snow, right? And making these shitty snowballs and throwing them. I don't remember hitting anyone with it. It must have been with my sister, but I don't remember it very well. But that was fun, you know. I liked that. I was a huge fan of monkey bars for whatever reason. I loved climbing monkey bars, and they would give me crazy blisters just as they would today. Oh, all the time. Like I just have blisters on my fucking hands. I might be getting in a little too much detail, so I'll probably speed it up, because I don't plan on making this a super long stream. I'm going to condense the streams to like 2 or 3 hours at most, and I'm going to keep discussing. I want to discuss this topic because it's been bugging me for such a long time now, and it's so complicated. Like there's a lot to weed through. So we're living in Dallas, and around 5 years old, yeah, at about 5 or something like that, remarried. So my mom remarries and we go back to Fiji. We go back to Fiji when I was about between 5 to 7 years old. We were living in Fiji. At around 7 or so, I think it was, mom divorced again. And we moved to Colombia, South America. And we're staying right here in Cali, this city right here. Now this was rough. My first language is English, obviously. And the type of culture that exists on this tiny little island in just the middle of the ocean is so extremely different from the culture that's in this big old country that's like a whole corner of South America, right? The way it is in Fiji and on a tiny island is very humble. It was very rural, not to mention that Fiji has a lot of tourists, like attention and stuff, but Fiji itself is not like a super wealthy country. At least I don't know if it is, if it's better today, but at the time, from what I remember, it was very behind on the times, right? And I can't really, you can't really blame them, because what more do you need? It's so small, the population is not even that big. You get enough from tourism that you can sustain yourself. And people didn't care for much. They just wanted to enjoy the island and like go swimming, go fishing, um, and just like have a good time together. That's kind of what it was. That was the idea all the time. But going from that to Colombia, the culture in Colombia is extremely different. It's almost completely flipped. It's very complex. It's a huge country with different regions. Everyone here cares a lot, especially in Cali. They care a lot about social status and class. Like, what neighborhood you stayed in was important to them. Like, what kind of clothing you wore, the places you would go out to, the things you would do, things like that. That was all very important over there. Not to mention, I had to pick up Spanish. I don't think I had learned Spanish by then. Yeah, no, I had it because they threatened to hold me back a year because I couldn't speak the language. So my mom got me a tutor to pick up Spanish kind of quickly, and that actually worked really well. I picked it up real well, and to this day I still speak it, read and write it. I don't know how, but I do. So we're living in Cali until I was like 10 years old. Yeah, I was 10 years old. It was January 2006, and the only reason I know that is because my mom told me. So we moved out of Colombia in January of 2006. So I had barely turned 10 years old, and we moved back to the States, to Florida. And this is where we make our way back to Cape Coral right here, this tiny little fucking town. Look at this shitty town. Look at this place. So that was another whole like culture change from South America to the States, and that was rough as well. It's not fun. Yeah, you get to see all these cool places, but as a kid, it's not enjoyable to lose all your friends, to lose all this like social norms and progress that you make in your life, and then you have to start all over. Looking back on it, I am, grateful in many ways for it, but at the time I was so angry all the time. I was just unhappy. Yo, Trafalgar Parkway. My middle school was around here. My middle school is Trafalgar Middle School. I still have. It's right there, Trafalgar Middle School. Dude. Wow, 3.5 stars. It's been a while. Yikes, 4 years ago, 1 star. Anyway, Trafalgar Middle School is my middle school. Gulf Elementary was where I spent 5th grade. And then this is where I started middle school, Trafalgar. I was there from like 6th to 7th grade. Then we fucking moved once again. We moved in Florida, at least. We moved north to where is it? Jacksonville, up here. We went from Cape Coral to Jacksonville. From Cape Coral to Jacksonville for the dumbest fucking reason. Yeah, dude, just moving everywhere all the time. It didn't stop. It didn't stop until Texas. So 7th grade, I think it's like the middle of 7th grade. We leave Cape Coral, we move to Jacksonville, spend the rest of 7th grade in Jacksonville, which sucked ass. Everybody fucking hated it, including my mom. But we left Jacksonville eventually, came back to Cape Coral, and I finished 8th grade in Challenger Middle School. Let me see if I can find that. It's Cape Coral Chartle, Calusa, Mariner Middle. I remember it was real close, wasn't it? It was pretty close to Trafalgar. Right there it is. Challenger Middle School. That's where I did 8th grade, and that was a lot of fun. It wasn't bad. I learned a lot. in this middle school, like socially, I learned a lot. Oh man, that something just clicked in my brain. I always thought I was just a socially awkward kid. Just like that's just who I am as a person. But now I'm questioning just by that I'm socially awkward because I had to change social circles so much in my life that I could not fathom. I couldn't register, I couldn't handle so many changes that I just gave up at some point or something like that, right? I was like, this is too much. I can't just keep changing all the time. So I'm just not even gonna try. Anyway, moving on. So we finished 8th grade in Florida, and now this was like 2000. It was around 2008. We all know 2008 was like the recession, and Florida got hit really bad because of the housing bubble or whatever. So essentially things were rough, like financially at home. They weren't very good. We had some family in Houston, and my mom thought, okay, or she asked them rather, how are the things in Texas? Or either she asked or they told her, oh, Texas actually can handle themselves decently well. It's a strong enough state, right? That can sustain itself for the decently well. So she takes a gamble, and we moved to Houston in 2010. Now, I'm not zooming in for obvious reasons, but we stayed in Houston ever since. So I've been in Houston since 2010, and this is the longest I've ever stayed in one place. And that has been tripping me out for some time now. That's something I've had to, or I realized was tripping me out, and that I've had to come to terms with, or am trying to come to terms with, right? It's been weird. It's been weird. So I did all of high school in one school. So the first time I ever started and finished in the same school. I did all of college in Houston, graduated UH. Don't care about because I'm moving around so much. I don't have any like pride or loyalty to anything. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, or like I feel like some people would be like, oh, well, that's kind of sad or this or that. And I'm like, I just don't care. I don't care enough to make something out of it. Like I never had school spirit because I never stayed in a place long enough to identify. Oh, I thought someone was knocking on the door, but we're good. So I don't even care about like, I don't have school spirit for my university. I don't have school spirit for my high school. I just don't care. And I struggle to feel any loyalty or spirit in like my motherlands. Like I do feel some pride in being Colombian and in being Chinese. There's a lot of rich history in both of those places, and I'm grateful to have heritage from both those countries, and then to be living in the United States, obviously, currently the most powerful, for now, country in the world. All things considered, I've had a lucky enough life. It hasn't been particularly difficult. It's had its challenges, sure, but for the most part, I have to be grateful, right, for my experience. So that brings us to today: disillusionment and the pursuit of happiness. I should set context, right, in general. So why am I disillusioned? I think I'm disillusioned. I feel disillusioned, and I think it's because of a lot of external factors. I don't feel internally like I don't have worth. I've done enough things throughout my life that I feel like I have enough personal worth to to justify myself in the things that I want to do. I have my insecurities just like anyone does, but I don't feel like I'm not worthy of the things that I want to pursue. Even if I can acknowledge that I'm not particularly good or amazing at everything that I do, that doesn't mean I can't get better. You can always get better. I graduated college in 2018, December 2018. So 2019 was about finding a job. 2019 was all about using those degrees. I graduated with 2 degrees, both in business, which I went into college a theater major. So I did theater all of high school, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a performer. I wanted to be in entertainment. I wanted to do theater and film and acting and stuff. I was convinced otherwise by family, and I don't regret it. I don't like to hold regrets. This is something that I learned from moving around so much. But I don't like to hold regrets. So I don't regret it. It stings a little bit. Yeah, it does hurt now that I'm in a weird place. But I'm just dealing with it, right? So 2019 was all about using those 2 degrees, which were in business. And what I wanted to do at first was marketing. And that wasn't working too well because marketing requires a lot of digital skills that I didn't have. I still don't have these digital skills. I'm still trying to figure things out. So my initial track was management. So since marketing wasn't working out, I decided to focus back on management, and I did get a job, but it just wasn't it wasn't feeling right. It was in consumer loans, which is a terrible thing to do. I mean, some people don't care, and that's fine for them, I guess. But me personally, my internal moral compass was being thrown out of whack, and I wasn't feeling comfortable at all doing this job, right? It's these consumer loans, it's personal loans, very small, like $3,000 to $5,000 loans, but the interest rates were like plus 30%, which is insane. And I did that through all of 2020, which made it even worse because, as we all know, 2020 hit the fan in 2020. We all know what we're talking about. Can't say the word because apparently the interwebs don't like it. I did that for all of 2020 and up until April of this year. And I was getting, I feel I was becoming genuinely depressed doing that. I've been brushing up with depression for some time now, at least 6 months. It's like little whiffs, It's like it comes by and just kind of like, hey, it's like, hey, just to let you know, I'm close by, and I'm having to be like, what the fuck was that? I don't think I've ever, if I have, I don't remember it, but I'm not sure if I've ever brushed up or experienced genuine depression like that before. It's a weird feeling. It's uncomfortable. It makes you feel icky. Not icky, but it's like you feel this numbness. You don't want to do anything. And like, I've always played video games my whole life, and I love playing video games. But even then, just felt so empty and meaningless. It's just weird, I couldn't understand what was happening. Doing consumer loans throughout all of 2020, which sucked because it's a very predatory business model. Whether or not the people in it want to say that and acknowledge that, but it is very predatory. And it just was not working for me. So I managed to quit, or I was able to quit this past April. And that's only because of all that previous life experience I mentioned. money was kind of a big thing, because you need money to move around so much. You need money to establish yourself, to uproot and then reestablish yourself in a new place. So it my whole life I was always under the impression that money was just right there, just barely making it, and I couldn't ask for anything, because if I did, it would throw shit out whack. Family can't afford it. Don't ask for anything. That kind of has been ingrained in me, and I'm kind of learning to balance that fear of that financial instability fear. So because of that, I've always been very careful with my finances, and like budgeting and everything. And I was also lucky that in high school I had a good economics teacher who taught us how to properly budget and start investing and things like that. So I got out of college with very little debt, only one loan's worth of debt, which is extremely lucky. And everything that came together for that to happen, I can't be more grateful for that. Not to mention my parents like keeping a savings fund for both my sister and I for whenever we did go to college. That was extremely helpful. So I came out of college with very little debt, and the job was decently well paying throughout all of 2020. And since everything was closed down, we didn't go out very often, right? So that saved even more money. I had enough savings that I could confidently quit in April, at the end of April, without really worrying about, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Now I have to find another job, whatever. Quitting in April is what really set forth this whole... I'm calling this a time for me to do some soul searching. I needed to figure out what I wanted to do. I actually picked up a philosophy book. I picked up Nico McCann Ethics, and I started reading that, and that's been really interesting. That book kind of discusses how, well, as far as I've gotten so far, it's about how do you live a good life, and I guess that is what philosophy is in general. That's been, I don't want to say haunting, but that's the best word that comes to mind right now. It's been a little haunting lately, because I mean, how do you live a good life, right? And having starting to read Nico McCann Ethics and How to Live a Good Life, I began to realize that, I kind of internally, I've kind of got things sort of figured out well enough, right? I don't know how, but I realized that internally, I kind of have enough figured out. Like I said earlier, I don't feel unworthy personally to pursue the things I want to. Yes, I have my insecurities. Yes, I have my flaws. Those are all acknowledged. That's not to say that I think I'm the best at everything, but just that I don't feel insecure to pursue the things I want. Yes, there are fears. Obviously, there's always inhibitions and hesitations, but I still feel that drive. I still feel enough drive. But what I'm learning now, and it's because of the events of both 2020 leading into 2021, living a good life is not only how do you present yourself in the world and in your society. That's not the only thing. There are external factors to it too. There are greater powers influencing the things that are happening around you. So, and there's a lot that is out of your control. There's so much that's out of your control that it's hard to manage. And sometimes you just have to accept that. But I'm having a lot of trouble accepting these things that are out of my control, because they're very serious. They're very serious issues. So living a good life is a combination of you being an ethical person and navigating your world well, but then that world responding to you in a positive manner, at least positive enough. And while things have increasingly become more peaceful, I would argue that things kind of peaked, and now they're either plateauing or they're just dipping a little bit, right? Learning in school about huge events like World War II, World War One, it never clicked in my brain or at least I wasn't taught to connect them well enough to today, right? Like these past occurrences have real consequences and direct consequences to your present day, which affects you actively. It's not just you. It's not just your actions and how you interact with the world. It's how the world then also responds to you in return, right? And this is what I think the disillusionment is coming from. So I feel disillusioned because of these external issues. A huge one that seems to be getting a lot more attention these days is the fact of the presence of nuclear annihilation, right? So in World War II, humanity reached out into the darkness and gripped the power of stars. Some fucking how, some way, this monkey, this ape on a random planet in some random galaxy managed to get a hold of nuclear, what is it, fusion? I don't know what it is. Nuclear power, essentially. And dude, that's like giving an ant colony a flamethrower. So that's something that's been messing with my brain for a while now. And I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the atomic, not the atomic clock, the doomsday clock is what it is. The doomsday clock became a thing. Einstein was part of the. He was one of the scientists that helped establish the doomsday clock. And it was created by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, I think is what it's called, because of the advent of nuclear weaponry. Like, do you see how insane that is? This creature is so self-aware. But I don't, it's so hard to put into words. They managed to grip nuclear power. They're self-aware enough to know the dangers of that power, and yet the ones that are fully in control of that power don't care. The only thing they can think about and worry about is how to use it against their enemies. That's the only thing that comes to their mind. And yet we have the ones who are the group of creatures who are trying to figure shit out, right? Are like, oh crap, this is a problem. So we're gonna get together and create a warning to the rest of the world. Call it the doomsday clock. Because of So this is issue number 1. Okay. Nuclear power, nuclear weaponry. It's been getting more attention, and I'm grateful for that. I don't think it's gonna get enough attention to de-weaponize, to try and get rid of nuclear weapons. It's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. The US has way too many. Russia has way too many in response to that. It's not going to happen. It's like you can't trust. This is a very big picture. Right now, today, we are at 100 seconds to midnight on the doomsday clock. Midnight being total collapse, nuclear annihilation, whatever you want to call it. 100 seconds, which is the closest we've ever been, and we've been at 100 seconds for like 1 or 2 years now, which granted is not that long of a time, but it's still very scary. And that's something that's been bugging me ever since I learned about it. Like, why is this? How is this a problem? How is this problem not being acknowledged? What gives? What is the motivation to maintain these nuclear weapons, to keep them? I don't understand. Everyone acknowledges that there is no winner. There's no winner in this situation. The whole like, what is it? It's like a deterrent or something. I don't remember the term of it exactly, but point being that the reason people don't use nuclear weapons is because other people have nuclear weapons, and therefore that would create so as soon as one of them launches one, by the time they land, the other opponent could respond with a counterattack, and then everyone is obliterated. So there's no winner. Like, everyone knows this. It is common knowledge, including those who have control over the bombs. So why keep them? And it goes back to this like ridiculous fear that, oh, if we get rid of them, they probably won't get rid of them, or they may not get rid of them, or they'll secretly keep some. Like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating that we're still so low. It's so pathetic, right? And that's part of my frustration. I think I need to kind of condense these issues. So it's been about an hour. I think that's good for today, honestly. I've set context, so we know who I am. Toddler toss, Z-llennial, moved all over the world, and I am disillusioned with the potential future of myself, of my future, and the world at large. Point number one being the whole nuclear issue is very frustrating, and it's scary. We're 100 seconds to midnight. Maybe this will reach some voices, even if it reaches like one other person and gets them turning the wheels about, why is this a problem, or why aren't we talking more about this? Then I'll consider this a success, right? I'm throwing this out there because it's just been cycling inside for so long now that I have to do something about it. Like, I can't. I've spoken to some friends about it, and I want to hear more voices, more feedback. I need to talk more about it. So that's where we are right now. That's where I'm stopping for today, at least. I'm gonna start writing some things down so I can kind of come in with more of a plan. But this was step number one. Okay? Step one. So thanks for coming along for today. Yeah, that's a good hour. There you go. So we have context and everything. I'll go ahead and save this stream, upload it to YouTube. You can catch me on YouTube. Honestly, I need to change my name on there, but it's linked in my Twitch channel. You can just follow it there. But cool. All right, thanks. See ya.